Hello, Maverick traders, and welcome out to your daily currency recap. This is Ankit here, and I'll be breaking down today's market price action. It's a Monday, July the 14th. Let's get into it. As always, we'll be taking a look at top-down analysis by looking at broader market analysis, take a look at what's happening in the currency baskets, and then take a look at some possible setups ahead. Let's get into it.
Do you want to be a professional trader? Maverick Currencies is the oldest US-based Forex and crypto prop trading company that will pay you for trading with our capital. Trade our capital and keep 70 to 80% of the profits. We are looking for traders just like you that are hardworking and motivated. Click the apply link on the top right of this video to see if you have what it takes. That link takes you to a 4-minute video that explains the trader position available, and you read a list of FAQs that answer pretty much all the basic questions you have at this point. After watching the video and reading the FAQs, if you're interested, fill out an application, then you'll watch the full-length recruiting video, and then schedule an interview with one of our traders. Are you our next trader?
Jumping into market analysis, let's just jump right into the headlines and the numbers. And here we are, market remains bullish. We saw a gap over the weekend. Yesterday when market opened up, we saw a nice gap lower, but then market have reversed all those losses. So overall, nothing really has changed in the markets. Now, here we are in the currency markets, and I think we're continuing to see that continuation pattern from last week. The dollar remains strong while the pound remains the weakest currency. So that's really where we are. But most importantly, we're going to talk about next 24 hours as we get the key US inflation data. Now, let's just take a look at how things are moving today. And you can see that the dollar actually is the outperformer, and growth currencies continues to be underperforming. And here we are, pound down as well. So overall, it's a quiet day. It's not a big market moving day. Really, the best movements that we have today is really if you take a look at dollar against the Aussie, dollar against the Kiwi, and even dollar against the pound. That's really where the biggest movements are. Now, euro versus franc, not a whole lot. Yen sort of taking a break. Now, Canadian dollar, which we talk about in the currency room, is also looking pretty good compared to the dollar, and both are kind of moving in tandem. So it's a smaller percentage moving day, but I think we are just seeing things setting up for tomorrow as we get those key inflation data from both Canada and the US. Now, here's the broader markets, and you'll see the same theme. You see everything is kind of in a very small range. S&P, they were down like 0.5%, more than 0.5% over the weekend, and now seeing a big recovery there as well. So the only thing that's down today is the oil market, but outside of that, it's a mildly moving day. Even in the crypto market, you'll see some mild movements as well. I know Bitcoin kind of hit 121,000, then pulled back, pairing some of those gains. Bitcoin Cash is sort of underperforming here, and Ethereum and Litecoin. But again, take a look at those percentage change. We had a massive move last week. It was a big percentage week last week. So we should probably see a bit of a consolidation here. Nothing too drastic on a pullback side. Now, here we are with the outlook. Well, anything changing the markets? Not really. I mean, take a look at this setup over here. This is the S&P 500, and you can see that this is just doing a high base. So whenever you see this, direction, it looks pretty clear. It's just a matter of timing when it's going to break out. It's just gathering the energy. That's really where we are. Now, when we talk about the news events, I think this is where next 24 hours is going to be important. Taking a look at both the CAD and the US, especially the US. I noticed, they're looking for an uptick in the inflation number on the year over year, and even core is supposed to go higher. So if this number, again, we've seen the inflation report hasn't been on a surprise front. They have been mostly onto the downside. But now if we start to see an uptick in this inflation number, I wouldn't be surprised if we see an uptick in the dollar. I'll probably see an uptick in those bond yields. Now, if this number comes out at or above expectation, I think we'll probably see a bigger move. If this comes out lower than expectation, I think that's where we could see a reversal as well. But I think where we are right now, I want to be really watching on this inflation number and see if there's an uptick there. Out of the Canada front, they're not really looking at a whole lot of change. You can see the only thing they're looking for a drop is in the CPI month over month, but those two other numbers kind of in line with expectations. So inflation number out of the US will be an important one to watch, especially if you're trading the dollar. I think that's where we probably see a bigger move. Not a whole lot for the rest of the day tomorrow, I think. So that's the big highlight. So when we take a look at the velocity score, I mean, it looks pretty similar to what we looked at in the currency room. Can you get a nice continuation pattern, the pound? So pound still looks like a good short. Kiwi, on the other hand, still underperforming. And then here we are with the Japanese yen, which, is also one of the worst currencies out there. But in the shorter term, just taking a little bit of a short-term pause. But overall, the velocity still looks pretty weak. Aussie's pulling back, but remember we talked about Aussie has broken out of that range. Not really seeing a continuation yet, but just seeing a bit of a slight bearishness there. Now, on the stronger side, we have the US dollar, and then we have the Canadian dollar, euro and Swiss franc. I've said that in the currency room. I'm kind of being a little cautious here on the euro Swiss franc, looking for some sort of rotation happening. And especially if the dollar does shine tomorrow or continues to shine, I think we'll probably see that. That's probably the best place to be, followed by the CAD. I think that's really where you can see the movement here. So these euro and Swiss franc kind of falls right in the middle there. On the downside, I think pound, dollar, Kiwi, and the yen looks the weakest. Now let's just jump into possible trades and take a look at some setups.
Do you want to be a professional trader? Maverick Currencies is the oldest US-based Forex and crypto prop trading company that will pay you for trading with our capital. Trade our capital and keep 70 to 80% of the profits. We are looking for traders just like you that are hardworking and motivated. Click the apply link on the top right of this video to see if you have what it takes. That link takes you to a 4-minute video that explains the trader position available, and you read a list of FAQs that answer pretty much all the basic questions you have at this point. After watching the video and reading the FAQs, if you're interested, fill out an application, then you'll watch the full-length recruiting video, and then schedule an interview with one of our traders. Are you our next trader?
Now, looking at the setups here, I want to start with the US dollar since that's the highlight going to tomorrow. That's really where we expect some movement. Now, let's talk about trend analysis on the dollar here. Dollar, you can see that has been in a downtrend from pretty much since April. So here we are. That's a bit of a rally that failed, and pretty much since then we have stayed below this 50-day moving average and even 20-day moving average. Now, a couple of times we peaked above, and both times we got knocked down. This is the only time where we actually saw a bit of a pickup here. We went sideways for a bit. Here we are getting close to that 50-day moving average. The question is this going to break out above this one? And I think that's where we can see a bit more bullishness in the dollar. Or does it fail again like it has done previously? So I think at this point, I do like this for further breakout, especially above as you get towards this previous high over here, but most importantly, get above this 50-day moving average. Now, could the data get supported by it? I think that's really what we are going to be looking for, is that confirmation from the data. But price action wise, I think this is the daily chart. But even though if I go on a 4-hour chart, you'll notice that we broke above that consolidation phase here. So dollar being one of the weakest currency this year, I think is just rebounding here. Also keep an eye on the bond yields, and you can see where we are right now. The bond yields are kind of back to, here's a daily chart on bond yields. So you'll notice that bond yields are back to pretty much where we started off. So overall, the bond yields are slowly rising. It's no longer in that downtrend. At this point, it could start to pick up, especially if the inflation data gets a little bit hotter. And I think that would definitely benefit the USD. Now, let's take elsewhere. Did anything change in the yen? Nothing really. You can see that even though we got a little bit rally today, this is just bare rally. So you got to understand where you're entering in the trade. You want to look for these rallies to be shorting into. And this is a perfect example for a bear rally to short into. So yen still looks the weakest here to me. Outside of that, you can see Swiss franc is rising, get above that resistance here. I would expect, if I want to trade this, I think this could get a range bound. Unless it breaks above the resistance, I think this could be in for some range bound price action. And the euro kind of looks the same right here. I think could be range bound here. Now, British pound is the one I would say that looks the best short. So the question is that here's a daily chart. We are getting right towards that prior support here. Can we break lower? And I think this is where we need to get that push. But if it does break lower, I think there's definitely more room for this to fall further. This still has a little bit more room to fall before it really retests that level. But yeah, I think that's where we're heading here. Pound, even on a 4-hour chart, you'll notice that, we're not really getting big rallies. You're just getting small little bases here, and it just continue moving lower. So this is, again, continues to be on the top of the list here. The CAD, I think CAD looks very similar to what we see in the USD. We got a resistance right above here. So if it does break out above that, we have the CPI number tomorrow. We'll see what happens. This also goes on the top of the list as well, right after the USD. Now, Aussie, I talk about Aussie. This is a massive breakout level. It broke, and then we're just getting a pullback. But notice that this is a very small, mildly bullish pullback. This one still remains a valid long as this prior resistance is act as a support, meaning that it can pull back even further down to this level. It's still a valid setup if as long as it holds that level. So nothing really is showing us as any directional wise anything change here. But yeah, we definitely in a little bit of a pullback here for the short term. Kiwi, on the other hand, remain the weakest currency. You can see this thing is just hanging right around that support area. So I think this probably come down to what happens tomorrow with the CPI numbers. So let's talk about setups. First one I want to talk about is pound dollar. Pound dollar is setting up nicely. Again, this is the one that is weakening. I mean, take a look at daily chart below the 20 to 50 moving average. Now, this thing is no longer in an uptrend. This is now in a downtrend. Where did it break that downtrend? 134.87, 135, let's just say. Sitting at 134.32. I think that's really what we want to take a look at. As long as it stays below the 20 to 50, I think this can weaken further. Now, where do I enter? I always get that question. Again, it really depends on your timeline, how long you want to hold that trade for. You're trying to play directionally. You want to play on the daily chart, then use the daily chart. Even a 4-hour chart is a decent one as well. The next level support I see is at about 134. And you can see that if once it breaks that 134 area, the next level support comes down to 132. So decent risk to reward ratio on that one. This was the top of the list here for my dollar long tomorrow if that number comes out bullish. Now, dollar yen, that's another one that is on the top of the list. 1, 2, and here's the third. I mean, we're sitting at about 147.73. This thing also, had a nice little rally here. Again, it broke out. It almost retested that level, and then it just continued running up here. So this one on a 4-hour chart, 148. But if I really go out in the longer term, you notice that it can easily get towards that 150 or 152 is the momentum picks up in the dollar. So dollar yen, dollar and pound dollar both on the top of the list here. I think the last one is the Kiwi dollar. Same thing on the daily chart. Just like the pound dollar, this thing is also now below the 20 to 50. This is also breaking momentum here as well. If I enter on a 4-hour chart, you notice that just consolidating right here. But these setups, I would say that looking a lot clearer on the daily chart versus as I go short term, because the movement is just not too aggressive. We are just gradually weakening. So this is, I think, one of the reasons why I like the dollar long, because everything you look against is sort of, turning the trend. That the trend that has been in place for the last 3 or 4 months when the dollar was really weak, that thing is sort of turning here. So this is why I think dollar long could be a viable opportunity into tomorrow. Now, outside of that, do I see anything else? I think that's really where I want to be focusing on. We can take a look at CAD tomorrow, but you can see that dollar CAD is just holding steady. If there's a divergence tomorrow, I think what I want to see is dollar CAD get above the 50-day moving average as well, which is at about 137.40. But for now, dollar yen seems to be correlated. We can also take a look at opportunities like pound CAD, which is another one that we discussed in the currency room. Looks very similar to dollar CAD, pound dollar. So this one, again, both goes on the top of the list here. Pound CAD as well. And even we can take a look at Kiwi CAD around with Kiwi USD. This one is kind of tricky because, take a look at this range. Kiwi CAD has been in this range from 81.50 to 82.84. Yeah, so if it does break below that 8150, that will be significant. We'll probably see a bigger move off of that, but I think until then, treat it as a range bound price action. So that's really the game plan here. US CPI is in focus, dollar strong. It's also setting up for a breakout, so that's one thing I'm looking or keeping a close eye on. As always, pay attention to relative strength weakness. Volatility is low, so just account for slower but gradual moves. That's what we are seeing right now. And then again, looking for an entry. I think tomorrow CPI report would be one to watch for. And again, I'll post in the Discord group. I posted a lot of setups that we just discussed in the Discord group this morning, but keep an eye over there. If I see anything interesting, I'll post it there as well. Well, thanks for joining. Have a great rest of the day. Happy trading.